Welcome to Conversations from Stritch. Today is Thursday, March 6th. I'm Dr. David Livingston, president of Lewis University, and I'm joined by Dr. Christopher Sant, our provost. It's been an incredibly busy week. I think out every night. I think both of us have been out every night this week doing something. We had a great campus visit day last Saturday. Around 300 students and their families, so I think there were 600 or 700 people in the field house, getting tours, getting program information, meeting faculty and staff, hearing about how great Lewis is. It was really great to have everybody here on campus. We both attended the annual Brother Bernard Rapp lecture series installation for this year. Dr. Christiana Zenner, professor of theology at Fordham University, gave a lecture entitled Freshwater, Science, Values, and the Role of Theology. I thought it was really interesting to think about, as she always called them, in a multiplicity, fresh waters, not fresh water, and just the ways in which this is not only an ethical issue of today, but increasingly important issue theologically and ethically for our future. And we, of course, are incredibly lucky to be on one of the Great Lakes. We also on Tuesday night, or was that Wednesday? Tuesday night, we attended the TEDx event, which featured faculty, alumni, and community partners. I really appreciate everyone who made this incredibly special event that happens each year at Lewis occur. It was really impressive. I enjoyed all 5 of them, and Chris, you did a great job of introducing them, so thanks for that. Yesterday, we were honored to host a visit from the Mexican consulate in Chicago, including Gerardo Guerrero, who's the Deputy Consul General. We learned yesterday, I didn't know this, that it's the second largest consul in the world for Mexico in Chicago. So Chicago's obviously a big city with a lot of Latina members of the community. I think most people know Chicago's about a third African American, a third Hispanic, a third white, and then the broader metro area is also similar in terms of that. The delegation was there to learn more about Lewis. They've had a long-term relationship with St. Augustine, and to talk about the potential for strategic initiatives that we can do together. I am especially grateful to the students who were there representing ALASO, Alpha Psi Lambda, and Latinos in Medicine, Caitlin Munoz, David Blanco, and Alessandra Morales. They were just incredible. The other great event this week was the concert. The spring concert was on Monday night. Really amazing. Everything from solo saxophonist group to mariachi bands to rock and roll bands to a cappella choirs. It's really an incredible, great event. So next year, make sure you attend. This week's community hour featured Women in Business Career Fair, Improv Jam, Sustainability Club meeting, the Best Short Film Series, and Wow March Gladness. And of course, yesterday was Ash Wednesday. We had 2 packed masses. Both of them were kind of overflowing, which was really, really great. The COFAC Kickback is on Saturday. We talked about this last week with our great guest, Professor John Carey. The event will be in the Philip Lynch Theater and the Wadsworth Family Gallery from 6 to 11. It's a networking event, an open bar and food. You won't want to miss it. And we're a guest, as we said last week, we are honoring with the Lifetime Achievement Award that is being presented to John Carey, amazing faculty here. We will also be renaming the Studio Theater, and we are excited to be able to do that as well. We are going to be out the next 2 weeks. I'm going to remind people again that at the end. I'm going to Arizona and Florida. Chris is going to India next week with Dean Ryan Butt to kind of continue to develop relationships with recruiters for our international students, some of our alumni, and trying to continue to focus on how international education, especially from India, can be enhanced. So lots of exciting things
Oh
going
my
on.
gosh, there's so much there. I'm just, of all those things, I loved so much of what I got to do this week in those events. One thing I have not done yet, and I just remember that looking at the community hour events yesterday, the theater. Have you seen a movie in the theater yet?
I have not.
I haven't
No.
either, and I've heard it's a really amazing experience. With,
Yeah, no.
super good sound, especially.
And we can walk down the hall. It's right down the hall from where we are right now. So I've seen it a couple times now that it's been done, but I have not watched any films in it. But I look forward to that.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we are using it, and that we're doing things during community time and in the evenings for all different types of films for our community to take advantage of that new theater. So a few news items. Congratulations to Doctors Donna Martin and Renea McEwen of the College of Nursing and Health Sciences for receiving the 2025 Nurse Educator Fellowship Award. This award is given to honorees by the Illinois Board of Higher Education, and each recipient receives $10,000 to further their professional development and provide educational improvements to the nursing program. So we're really pleased. I think this is a third year that professors of nursing in the department have received this award, and there's really great results coming out from these relatively small grants, but it's such a great connection that we've been able to forge with Illinois Board of Higher Education to help support their professional development. And now a few events a little bit in the future, not too far. March 13th, the College of Aviation Science and Technology will be hosting a lecture on the intersection between faith and science. Good follow-up to Monday's lecture on water at 6:30 at the St. Joan of Arc Parish in Lisle, featuring Dean Christopher White and Dr. Dominic Colonna, Professor of Theology. The discussion will be focused on Pope Francis's encyclical Laudato Si. Blank Slate, exhibition by Paul Simmons, will be on display until March 14th at the Brent and Jean Wadsworth Family Gallery. Simmons is a Chicago-based artist and professor. His work explores the possibilities for invention within the printed image using the Xerox printer as a starting point. I think that was just last week I got to go watch his talk. It was a really, really interesting process of making those prints that I could never repeat if you asked me how he does it. There are many, many, many steps that involve Xerox machines and pressing stuff onto surfaces and different canvases and so on. It's really fascinating work. But please go check it out before it leaves the gallery on the 18th. Also on the 18th, Lewis University's Justice Law and Public Safety program is co-hosting with the Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center a Brill Law Enforcement Action in Democracy training program. Law enforcement professionals will have the opportunity to better equip themselves with the knowledge and tools to address issues of bias, hate, and abuse of authority. Lewis would like to invite the community to attend the 2025 Sapaniac Spring Lecture. The lecture takes place at 7 p.m. on March 27th in the University Dining Room and features historian Ann Durkin Keating. Professor Keating works as a professor of history at North Central and will present a talk called Another 25 Years at Hull House, Jane Addams, Planning and Housing Reform. March 27th will be Lewis University's annual Day of Giving, so mark your calendars for that. For 24 hours, the campus will unite to bring school spirit and generosity to over 25 funds, programs, clubs, and scholarships to improve the flyer experience. This year's theme is Let's Turn Up the Volume, a nod to the collective power of social giving and flyer pride with a musical flair. To make a donation, please go to the website and you'll find your way there. Givecampus.community. How do I say that? C-O-M-MHFIY.
Yes.
Two, I believe. I don't know.
I
Something like that. Just go to the website exactly. And search for it. Nobody finds things that way anymore anyway.
So in addition to all those great events, of course we have campus events that are coming up as well as athletic events that are happening. So let me just run through a few of the events that are coming up. We have today 10 tips in 10 minutes preparing for job internships. Jobs and internships, that is happening today at 3. Tomorrow we have Game of Spades sponsored by the Black Student Union. as well as men's lacrosse against Westminster, and the COFAC kickback, which we already mentioned, is going to be great. Sunday, we have Mass in our Lenten season. And then Monday, Alphabet Soup Productions in the Philip Lynch Theater. Tuesday, Swanita Panaderia. And the Gamma Phi Omega chapter of the sorority is sponsoring that panaderia, which is a kind of sweet pastries. And they will then doing some information session on the sorority. So come and stay for that. That runs from 12:30 until probably 2:30 or 3. Speed puzzling. I didn't know that was a thing, but it sounds fun. So speed puzzling is available Tuesday night in the Student Center, as well as decorating a tote. And then pool basketball. I love pool basketball and pool volleyball. So, we had our guest, David, here a couple weeks ago on intramurals. This is another opportunity to get out there and be physical, even if you're not in NCAA athletics, which we'll be talking about more in a little bit. Wednesday, we have opportunities for a service event, AAA community service event. We also have opportunities in terms of the ministry is doing sack suppers and a painting with Tracy. That sounds fun. So I know those opportunities are there. Next week's community hour on Wednesday, we have a career expo. We have a do-it-yourself fidget making, the Quran Bible workshop, and of course, Mass will be going on. And then we do have some athletic travel events. We talked about some of the men's volleyball will be in Franklin Springs, Georgia, facing Emmanuel University. On Saturday, they'll be in Fort Valley, Georgia. Women's basketball and men's basketball will be playing in the quarterfinals in St. Charles, Missouri. We hope that they move beyond those quarterfinals. Let's just say they're going to be there for the weekend, and hopefully we will come back with some real success from that weekend. Baseball will be traveling to Springfield, and they'll be gone this weekend. And then softball will be going to Upper Iowa, to Fayette, Iowa. I've never been to Fayette, but maybe at some point I will get myself there. And finally, Tuesday, men's and women's swimming will be at the NCAA D2 National Championships in Indianapolis. So lots of exciting things going on in terms of both athletic and events on campus. It's that, again, that transition of the seasons. Lots of championships going on for the winter sports. So basketball's in conference championship, swimming's in national championships. But we are not quite halfway through the season for a couple other sports that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and just a couple notes on that list we just looked at. I think the women's basketball game is at 6 p.m.
Sounds right.
I know we're going to be at a dinner, and I will be. We will
both be looking at our phones, which we often do.
During that, really exciting, and so we wish them the best of luck. The men play tomorrow, and I think we have 9 swimmers going to the nationals, which is extraordinary accomplishment for them. Okay, so I'm really, before I introduce our guests, I'm a reminder that you can email a question to askus@louisu.edu. And if you're watching a recorded version of this on YouTube, you can still use the email address to ask a question, and I can forward it to our guests, or we can get it to whomever might be the right person to answer. So I'm really pleased to introduce our 2 guests today. I'll do them both one after the other, and then we'll have a conversation. So first, Becky Pearl is in her 11th season as head coach of the softball team after spending 10 years as the head coach of Judson University. Flyers are coming off a 40-win season in 2024 with a trip to the regional championship game. Mike Vucsko is entering his 4th season as head coach of the baseball team after spending the previous 7 seasons as an assistant coach at Lewis. He graduated from Lewis in 2011. So Mike, Becky, so glad you're here with us.
Hey, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Love to have you.
Before we begin, if you guys want a vacation to Fayette, Iowa.
Is that right?
That would be a good trip for you guys.
It's a good trip. How many hours? How many hours in a bus?
It's only about 4.5.
4.5
it's not
hours.
too bad.
It's not just the destination, it's the journey to there too, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Lovely town.
Yeah. All right. Good. It's good.
Great places to stay. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So we want to begin by just learning a little bit about each of you, maybe something that people watching don't know, or just, so Becky, we'll start with you. You're our seasoned veteran, experienced coach. tell us a little bit about like how did you get into coaching in the first place?
Yeah, to be honest, I wanted to be a veterinarian growing up. So when I got to college, I just kept thinking, how am I going to be around softball this much if I'm a veterinarian? Like, I just really feel this pull to coach. And decided to go into math education and get my coaching minor at the same time. And the first time I stepped foot on the field as an assistant coach, it was just love right away. So I knew I had to pursue that, and I've been blessed to get into a head coaching role pretty quickly out of being an assistant at Wesleyan. So it's just been hit the ground running after that.
So Becky, can you tell me, I'm interested from maybe both of you, but so both of you athletes, obviously, but were you one of those people, you know, that like knew from whatever, age 5 that you were like doing softball and that's all you did? Or did you do like softball and volleyball and, you know, all the like 10 sports and then it gradually narrowed to one sport when you got to high school? Because I think there's different paths that people take in terms of their athletic world.
Definitely. So I played volleyball, basketball, and softball all the way through high school, actually.
All right. So a three-sport athlete. That's impressive.
I really knew after freshman year, I went to camps that summer at big colleges. And I called home in the middle of basketball camp. I was like, all they do is play basketball here. My mom was like, well, yeah, it's basketball camp. I'm like, yeah,
it's not going to work for me.
It's not going to work for me in college. And she's like, okay, one sport down. And but I loved softball all along. So I knew that's where I wanted to focus my athletic career in college.
Wow. All right.
What position did you play?
Pitcher, third base.
Third base. All right. Okay.
Mike?
Yeah, I played everything up until high school, and then it was basketball, baseball, and then it got narrowed down to baseball.
Baseball.
Yeah.
Okay. And your position?
I played second base and pitched a little bit. More of a second baseman though.
Yeah. So, but tell us a little bit about, because I'm also interested in your story. You came to Lewis, played baseball at Lewis.
Yeah.
So, you know, and we'll get into like recruiting and all of that kind of stuff, but your own experience of being recruited to Lewis, like what pushed the edge in terms of I'm going to Lewis versus I'm going, and was there a close second in terms of where you wanted to play?
Well, Irish O'Reilly recruited me. He actually showed me this studio that we're in on the visit. I do remember that. But I remember coming to games, like basketball games. My dad played basketball and baseball here. I remember coming to games when I was very little. I remember we used to have a hockey rink right outside of Neil Carey Arena. I don't know if you knew that or not. But so I was drawn to the hockey rink as an 8-year-old. I just loved it. So I remember telling my parents, like, I'm coming here. They got a hockey rink and a basketball court and a baseball field. Like, I'm coming here.
I'm here.
So
early on, you were
early
a young
on,
flyer.
I was a flyer right away.
Could you explain who Irish O'Reilly is?
Oh yeah, tell us, because he's such a classic.
Yeah, I believe his first year.
In 30 seconds or less.
Yeah, I don't know if I can finish in 30 seconds or less, but I think he started here in 1979, 600-700 wins, got to the World Series a handful of times. Was here
Incredible.
79 through I think 07 was his last year. So here forever. He coached my dad here back in the 80s. Inducted in the Hall of Fame.
So to have him, especially knowing, especially with your dad, you know, playing for him during those amazing years, being recruited by him was probably pretty powerful.
Yeah, it was
experience.
pretty cool just to get the phone call from him, you know, going through the recruiting process, and he walked my mom and I around on the visit. But yeah, just to be in his presence was something else.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
So what's it like? So you each have. So you didn't go here. So what's it like? Like, I don't know how to talk about it among the four of us, but like it's different, I imagine, to be the head coach of a place that you played in versus having, and with some pros and cons, I'm guessing, compared to being able to come in fresh.
Yeah, I mean, just knowing the background of the school and the history of the baseball program, you know, it's definitely unique. And I got to learn a lot more about the history of the program over COVID. We did like this day in Lewis baseball history, you know, and going back all through the box score. So I got to know a lot of names and things like that, and cool stories.
That's cool.
We had a lot of alumni outreach, you know, during that time. Hey, I remember that score. I remember that game. So it was cool.
Yeah. I love that. I've been watching those too. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And Becky, how about you coming in? And I guess you know, maybe you could talk a little bit about what attracted you to the Lewis head coaching job. Obviously, there are other opportunities out there, and you, you came here, and you have set up a really strong culture on the softball program. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that transition, and then, how you got to know Lewis, and then how you developed your own kind of culture for the softball team.
Yeah, so I had played against Coach George when I was at Judson, and so we started our relationship early on in my career, and he would kind of mentor me through the recruiting process, and whenever there was somebody like, hey, this kid's great, I can't take her, I've got too many, or I don't need the position anymore, why don't you go after her? He was always good about that. So we would play before it became not helpful for him to play NAIA schools anymore. So we always had that relationship, and I fell in love with Lewis even from that time. When we would come on campus, I could just tell great academic programs, great athletic programs, just a strong history of success. And I always told myself if this job was open, I would have to go for it. The timing was not necessarily where my family would have loved it. My husband and I had just barely a 1-year-old. We've been married for 2 years. I kind of went to bed that night like, hey, I'm applying for a new job in the morning, good night. And it took him about a week to come to terms with, no, she's serious. She's going for this job. And he had moved, from like the Gurney area to Elgin. So he was already like, if you got this, you'd have to move south of 80. Like,
what is that
what are we
about?
doing?
Right.
I'm like, but you don't understand. Lewis is a place to move for. And, it was God's intention to get us here, so that's what we did, and it's just an awesome place to be, and it was definitely a learning process, right? Coming after such a decorated coach, the first question everybody asks is, how are you going to fill those shoes? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to. He had too big of shoes to fill, but I'm going to try to continue on his pattern of success and really try to build our culture around that.
So how do you do that? So when you come into a new, and really either you could answer this question too, but when you come into a new job as a head coach, because people ask this all the time, and we have a lot of coaches at Lewis. We're so in this great program that have been here a long time, which is great. But there's enough teams where there's always a little turnover, and so what does a new coach do when you enter into a new university like that?
I know for me, I really tried to focus on what we wanted that culture to be and how we wanted to run things. I've always loved life in the balance, which Division II, promises, and being able to still be who I am as an individual and expect a lot out of my athletes academically and athletically, without giving up my standards for them. So I love that at Lewis we could do that. I didn't have to change who I was as a coach. And so I really focused on that. I heard a quote early on in my career, it takes years to build a culture and seconds to tear it down. And so while recruiting, I really focus on making sure that they're not only talented, but that they fit into that kind of recipe for success, and making sure that they want to win a national championship with us here at Lewis. That's what we talk about, is wanting to do that no matter what your role is for the day.
That's great.
And Mike, you had a slightly different, because you played here, and then I think you were the assistant coach right after you played, if I remember.
There was a little 3-year break.
Oh, yeah, 3-year break.
I was
All right.
at Western Illinois for a year, and then I was at Quincy University getting my master's degree, and then I was fortunate enough to get hired back in the summer of 2014.
So were there guys on the team when you came back as assistant coach who you played with?
One.
Yeah. All right.
There was only one.
All right.
There was no more like 5-6 year guys back then.
Yeah.
So there was only one, and he was injured.
So it was
as
a
a sophomore.
fresh,
So
Yeah.
So there was.
And
a lot
then you
of turnover.
transitioned from assistant coach to head coach, and how do you because that's a slightly different thing too, right? Because you wanted to set your own culture.
Yeah,
but you're following somebody who you were under, and a lot of those guys knew that former culture.
And were recruited by the other head coach, and that's always.
Yeah, no, it was a big adjustment. I mean, as an assistant, you make a lot of suggestions, but when you're sitting in the chair, you make a lot of decisions, and sometimes they're not the most popular. I'm sure you guys.
I never have had that. I've never had that experience, Mike. Never once.
So yeah, I mean, it was an adjustment. I was actually talking to my assistant coach the other day that I told him, you better enjoy this time right now.
Right.
Like, guys texting you and things like that, because sometimes it's just harder to. Come in and face some facts and things like that. So, but yeah, it was a big adjustment for sure.
Do you have any? Becky was kind of talking about building the culture. Like, do you have any?
Yeah, no, she hit it. She hit it on the head there. I mean, it's character first, talent second here. You know, making sure hardworking, good academics, and then the baseball stuff. I think the baseball stuff will fall into line if they're taking care of their job in the classroom and not causing problems, you know, off campus as well.
Right.
So, and coming off a 3.70 as a team,
Yeah,
we got in the fall.
I was going to look this up this morning because I knew this would come up, and I just didn't get to it. But I think softball might have had the highest.
No, we didn't this time.
Okay.
No,
But
I think this is the first time.
We're right behind them, 3.5.
I think this is the first time we beat them in a while.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's
Pretty good.
So tell me about what it's like, the culture at Lewis. It's an incredible athletic, student athlete culture at Lewis. The academics and character are incredibly important. The success is amazing, right? I mean, kind of Learfield Cup success, meaning national success across many, many teams. How does that feel? Like, I guess I'm interested in like coaches walking the hall, talking to each other. I mean, give me a little sense of this, like, oh my gosh, so-and-so just, finished 6th in the national championship in women's track and field, or cross country. How does that play out among all of you? Because I feel like it creates this, my sense is it creates a positive culture of like, all of us have to kind of compete at this level. But I don't know that from the inside of a coach's belly, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to hold the athletic department down in the Learfield standings. It's like, baseball's got 2 points when everyone else got 12. But yeah, so there's a little bit of just competitiveness that I think we all have naturally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's great to walk down and you see top 5 straight top 15 finishes, which is pretty remarkable if you ask me. But yeah, I mean, just picking brains of, we got a lot of great coaches, a lot of guys who have been here. They're probably going to hate me for saying this, but we're coaching when I was playing here. So it's nice to have those guys can pick their brains on just things that we go through, sitting in a leadership seat, and it could be a lonely place at times, like we had briefly just talked about. But just picking their brains on that is really nice to have for me, anyway.
Yeah.
How about you, Becky? I mean, I'm sure there's mostly pros, but I don't know if there's any, but it's such a culture of success. It's really incredible.
I think it's incredible because you can lean on each other and you have that camaraderie that you can go into somebody's office and like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Hey, it is a lonely road. What have you done in this situation? And everybody's willing to help each other out and kind of rely on each other. And it doesn't matter how awesome they're doing. They don't come down and like, well, you need to step it up. It's just always like, let's work together and let's all get where we need to go, because I think we definitely feel that pressure of like, we've got to make sure that we help add points to the cup, right?
It's great. It's a great sense of attitude of doing that. Go ahead, Chris.
We had a question come in, and I wanted to kind of transition to maybe the general category of recruiting, because I think a lot of times people don't know how that works and they're really curious. So maybe. And then the question is really about NIL and other new things that are in the mix. But maybe to begin with, like, how do you recruit your team? Like, how does that even work?
Yeah, so for us, we recruit pretty much year round. Maybe Christmas is a little bit of a downtime for us. But I think, generally speaking, Lewis pulls a lot from the 75-mile radius of within Romeoville. And softball has such a great talent pool in that area.
In this region.
Yeah. So that helps us out a lot. There's tournaments every weekend, so we spend, after high school season in May, we spend every weekend at a tournament. They usually run Thursday through Sundays, so you map out kind of the emails that you've gotten, the coaches that you've spoken to, go to those games, and then we try to get people on campus and show them around as quickly as possible so that we can show off.
And when you're going to those tournaments, are you only watching them play, or are you taking some time aside to talk to them? And
so we can't talk to them until the end of the day, after all of their games are done for the day. But definitely not just watching them play, watching them interact with their families, watching them interact with their teammates, seeing where their hustle is, or who's carrying their bag off the field.
I love
we expect a lot out of our student athletes, and attitude and effort's not something that we want to coach, right? That's something that we expect, and we want to focus on what we can build after that.
And I guess, and maybe Mike, you can add to this, because I think, there could be prospective student athletes or cousins of somebody or parents of somebody who, now, because what you just said is for me, it is about character, because you're saying, I'm watching all these things. I'm interested that you just got a triple when, the bases were loaded and it was really tense and, it's in the 6th inning or 7th inning. But I'm also interested in whether you're the one picking up the bag and carrying it to the van, or you're supporting the person who just struck out. So how do what maybe Mike, you can start with this. What would you say to, a sophomore in high school in any sport in terms of, I want to play D2 athletics? Like, how do you cultivate that sense of getting to that point where I can be somebody that a coach might be interested in?
Yeah, I think majority of the time when I go recruit guys, I already know that you're talented enough. So it's a lot of what Becky just talked about, of checking those boxes of, are you sitting on the bench after your teammate just scored a run? Or are you getting up, getting high fives? Are you hustling on and off the field? How do you treat your coach? How do you treat your teammates? Are you asking for a Gatorade from your mom in between innings? Like just little things like that. So that's a lot of, just checking those boxes and just doing our due diligence on the character.
So are the stats, when you say, for both of you, I know, baseball and softball are such statistical things.
Yeah.
I know you're kind of good enough to, how do you know? Like, what gets somebody, and do you think, I guess this is the other thing, I know there's so many club sports, my daughter played college sports too, so do you feel like most juniors know where they fit NAIA, D1, D2, D3? Do they know that inherently, or do you think sometimes people have over-assessed themselves and then you have to kind of bring people to reality? Like, I'm interested, like, do you ever talk to people who think they're D1 athletes and you're like, you're really a great D2 player? I don't know how that plays.
All the time. That's probably our biggest uphill battle in recruiting is, but it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, when someone gets something in their brain, it's hard to get it out of there.
Right.
So but our biggest thing is like, we're not gonna chase you down. Like, we're gonna recruit you, we're gonna make you an offer, and either you want to be a part of this or you don't. And we've had really, really good success of not having guys leave here. We've had one student athlete transfer out of the baseball program in the last 2 years, in a day and age where I think there was almost 5,000 baseball kids in the transfer portal this past summer. So one in the last 2 years I think is pretty good, but I think a lot of that comes from them wanting to be a part of this and the university checking boxes from an athletic, academic, and a social standpoint.
So now maybe say anything you want in your own experience about how the new changes, the transfer portal is one example, NIL, as well as potential different eligibility based on community college.
Well, first, I think that we should start the NIL Livingston Synth Fund.
Yes.
To where if you guys want to...
Is that what we need?
Donate to those players.
To the collective?
Yeah.
All right, okay.
And if people are not, I mean, if you're not aware of what we're talking about,
it's an inside joke, but let's make it an explicit joke.
It's typically
it's a pay for play.
But to create a fund, it's really an entity outside of a university that people donate to, that can be used to pay players more directly than invitations.
It could go in a lot of different directions too. I know there's a school, a Division I school in Missouri, who doesn't have any money, but they're giving their student athletes $500 Visa cards and things like that they can go spend, or pay for a few meals here and there, help for rent, whatever it is.
Right.
So it's having a big impact on Division I sports, but maybe the question is, how is it impacting you in your sports? And how does it impact what, Becky, you said earlier about the kind of definition of what D2 is and the balance that it has?
I think for softball, we're not seeing it quite as active yet. More the student athletes are going out and finding companies to kind of work with, whether it's materials that they've used to train, and then those people will send them free stuff, and then they just have to post videos, and that's what I'm seeing out of my team for the most part. But I know that it's one of those things that I think could help us in the future to perhaps say like, yeah, you might go play D1, but you might also sit the bench for them, but we've got these other opportunities at the Division II level where you could be greatly successful and still have some opportunities to make some money or get some goodies.
Mike?
So, yeah, well, go ahead. And you've already mentioned the portal,
I mean,
but,
I haven't seen much of it in Division II. You know, I think there's a few schools in Florida, which is a whole different animal with baseball and softball when they're practicing outside for 12 months, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, we have a few guys who have dipped their toe in the water with, hey, wear this, and we send you a few free things. But that's pretty much the extent of it. But more so, the transfer portal has impacted Division II, where maybe guys want to get closer to home. You know, we have a handful of guys who, we got a Florida kid, a kid who went to Michigan, who both from this area, Bolingbrook and Joliet, who have transferred back here, who are big impact guys for us.
So essentially, there's more movement, and that's why, like earlier, Mike, you said you're really proud of the how many baseball players have stayed and completed their degrees here. That's becoming less obvious as an outcome when it's much easier to transfer out as well as to get people to transfer in. How does that change your day-to-day work, either of you, in terms of paying attention to that?
Well, you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
I mean, starting on June 3rd, because that's the first day it opens, my wife has to tell me 3 times a day to get off the computer. So, yeah,
you're looking for guys that
just
now, tell me both sides of it, because there's 2 sides.
I mean, yeah, we're not going nationally, but like if I recognize a name who went to Joliet Catholic or Marist, yeah, I remember that kid. Right. Let's reach out to him. So
it's
we're
like
looking.
Somebody you've already like observed in that recruiting process, and you're like, oh, they're back, they're available again. And,
or Billy knows someone from transferring from Michigan who's getting closer to home, you know, and he reaches out on his behalf, who's on our team. That's kind of how the connection starts. But yeah, I mean, I think I was on it for like 50 straight days, starting on June 3rd, just checking it randomly. But yeah, it's insane. It's nuts. And I'm sure Becky's got a similar experience with it.
Yeah, I think it's just trying to make those kids realize, like, if you're not happy where you're at, then this is a great opportunity for you to come back. And we've had a little success with it. We've seen a lot of kids reach out and then we do the work, but they've also then gone back to Division I. So that's always part of the process of probably why Mike says he was on it for 50 days straight. At some point, I'm like, somebody else get on this so that I can go watch some softball or something.
And you have to do that whole character analysis that you talked about.
Which is difficult because they're not playing travel ball anymore. So now you have to kind of reach out to other people and rely on that information that way.
Yeah, well, difficult work.
Yeah, it really seems like it's becoming more complicated. And I guess I want to say, because you both mentioned it, it feels like the increased importance of culture. Because being to hold on to a team is much more difficult if the kind of temptation is always there to go look at the shiny object somewhere else, right? And just get on the portal and say, well, let me see what's out there.
So I'm glad that you both talked about academic success. I'm really glad that you're competitive about it. That makes me feel.
I know, it's awesome.
So how do you help students be? You know, obviously you recruit people who are excellent academically, but how do you help them? Because you know, as we talked about many times here on the show, their lives are really hard and complicated, and they're on a bus to Upper Iowa, trying to get homework done, and so how do you support them? I guess is my question. To be successful.
Well, first we got to tip our cap to Sean Dwyer, who's and Ed Schaefer. 2 guys been running the academic stuff here for 2.5, 3 years. They do a great job with meeting with student athletes. They take a lot off of our plate, which is grade reports, checking in with professors, things like that. But I mean, you kind of hit it on the head there. If you want good student athletes, well, recruit good baseball players and good students. Like it's really that simple. So there's not like we're not running study tables.
They're self-motivated a lot of the time.
I mean, we're not running study tables 8 hours a day. We got great kids in our program, who it's academics first, baseball second. So it does make my job a lot easier with getting good grades and getting a 3.7 as well.
So can you talk a little bit about where you see, because the flip side of that is having academic programs that you can recruit into. Right. So if you're talking to athletes, like how does that play into your mind? And do you have to do, I mean, maybe you already knew it all, but like, do you have to like understand, oh gosh, for instance, board just approved a new program in undergraduate in artificial intelligence. So like when something like that happens, or speech language pathology with communication disorders, and you can have a path to that, how do you stay connected to all the opportunities you can offer to a student? So if you're sitting with a family, and I mean, maybe we know a lot about aviation, but all of a sudden there's a new thing, like I said, in AI or something else. So how do the coaches stay connected to what somebody can study here?
I think it's key to just reach out and educate yourself and be ready to answer any questions. Obviously, you try to find out ahead of time what they're thinking about majoring in, getting them connected with those professors. I mean, we've come and gotten to meet with KILP and have tours around here and see what can work. But, you know, our theory, at least, and I think it's across the board with the coaches, is, you know, if we offer it, then we're going to make it work one way or another. So whether it's making sure that we've got opportunities for them to have individual practices when they can't make team practices, scheduling our games around our clinicals when we have nursing majors, because we've got these great opportunities that are with them the rest of their life, right? Like, especially for softball, you're not going to go make millions after this playing softball, but you are going to have a career. And so let's make sure that we can make the most of our academic experience here and play softball and be competitive at the same time. And we're one of the few schools that is willing to work with those nursing majors and make those other majors happen, you know. So like if I'm unsure if aviation can happen, I can go to Mike and, okay, you've been successful and these guys are doing a good job. Tell me what I've got to do and how I can help my student athletes if I do have an aviation major come in. So just really kind of communicating.
Right.
I have Lewis.edu bookmarked on my phone with the academic page. So when they say, you know, hey, I want to major in this, I just, you know,
scroll through and say,
down,
we got that.
Click on the link and it takes me right to the page and send them some information. So.
And I know our admission staff are really, you know, available and supportive and can always quickly answer
no, the support
questions
staff's been great. Like when we have an aviation kid on campus, you know, Caitlin Weber does a great job in aviation of touring them around, being available to meet with them. Things like that. I think we have 3 kids coming in I guess it'll be the fall of 25 who are doing aviation. They all met with Kaylin and she's 3 for 3 this year. So if she screws up the streak, you know, next year,
that's great.
Okay,
so we're almost out of time, but so tell us what's going on right now. Like what are you
how
doing
the
today?
season's going.
Like how, where I think it's early in the season, I hope, since I haven't even been to a game of either sport yet.
Mike and I were just talking. I'm 24 games in, and he's only 8, so I guess I'm a little bit further along, just because of our early trip to Hawaii. And so we're starting conference play this next week for us, and we just gotta go.
And how are you feeling about the team?
We're young and talented, so it's just making sure that all the pieces fall into the right spots, and we've got a lot going for us. That's for sure. I'm excited.
I mean, a great season last year.
Yeah.
So building on that with the young talent, it's exciting. Yeah. Mike, how about you? How's the team?
We're old and talented.
Old and talented.
Wow. We're old and talented. But no, we're off to a good start, 5-3. We're just coming off four straight wins. We were fortunate enough to play at home last weekend. Well, Crestwood. Yeah. With the all turf. So we're going to Springfield. We're leaving later this afternoon. Start conference play. Hopefully get off to a good start and keep it rolling. But yeah, I mean, we got some seniors who are pitching the ball really good so far through 8 games.
Nice.
So if we can keep that going, I like our chances. We've been kind of knocking on the door the last 3 or 4 years in the conference tournament. Finished 3rd last year, 4th the year before, and 3rd the year after that. So you keep getting close. We'll knock it down one of these years.
So
your first home games in Romeoville are into
next
March,
weekend.
Or next weekend. Okay.
It's supposed to be 70 on Tuesday, so keep our fingers crossed for the weather. Wind's blowing out to right with the short fence over there. So
exciting.
I'm sure our hitters will enjoy that.
I love the seasons. I love the game. And it feels to me like it's still so popular, but it's also, there are people who just find baseball and softball, I guess it's
possible to understand.
Yeah, they're just people out there who don't appreciate it, and I so love it. I mean, I can sit there and anyway, I grew up on I am a Cubs fan, which I know is not.
Okay.
I know.
No, they're saying
We're Cubs fans. We
We're
agree.
Cubs fans.
We agree on that.
Yeah,
we agree
we
on that.
all- we all three agree. There you go.
But I mean, I grew up with WGN. Like the little transistor radio was always in the backyard when I was raking or doing anything. And boy, I love the game. It's baseball and so it's just so fun. So and I feel like the coaching means a lot. Like what you do in some other sports, coaching always matters, but a lot of time it's before the game happens that the majority of the coaching happens. I feel like yours is more balanced. I don't know if you would agree with that, but it feels like you got to do a lot of the work beforehand, but during the game, there's a lot of ways that the coach can have an influence on the game.
Yeah, I tip my cap to my assistants with the preparation, with the scouting reports up until that, but and taking care of the food and hotels and things like that to make my job a little bit easier. But yeah, the in-game stuff with who's coming in, who's coming up.
Right.
You know,
how long do you leave a pitcher in?
Yeah, do you
that
bunt?
feels like one of the biggest decisions
things,
you make
right?
every game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and without that help beforehand with our staffs, it makes that even more work if we don't have them. So.
And what's really beautiful about that to me is that you are good to be good at it. You really have to know them.
Yeah.
So it's really about a relationship you have with the players, where you know what's going on inside of them just by watching and being there. And
one of the things we talk about when we recruit these guys is if we know you a little bit better, we could coach you a little bit better. So we try to have the guys stop by the office once a week, sign the board, say hi, talk about how the Bears beat the Packers in the last game.
All right,
Mike had to get that in.
Had to get it in.
Happen. Like he got 3 seconds
away to.
He has to dig.
That's accomplished. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
It's really fun.
All right, so we do have to wrap up the show. We will be off the next 2 weeks and back on March 27th. This was a great show. It's always so fun. But I hope you have a good week, a good spring break as well. Many blessings to you and all those that you love.
Jerry on top. The middle attacking kill from Tomas Madan. Nico Paula sacrificing. Oh, we got a little bicycle kick. Dejan Todorov doing it all. And the ultimate point for the Flyers. And that gets the bench going. You want to talk about a momentum shift? Look no further